This one is really short. It's by Alpha Wolf Lover from Reddit, and this is chapter 1. So let's see what advice I can give. So I'll read it through first. 13 years ago, the Kozelsk kingdom was destroyed. The Kozelsk kingdom was one of the strongest kingdoms and the oldest. The Kozelsk kingdom was taken over by the Sarith Empire. The ruler of the Sarith Empire is Szeth. Szeth is a powerful being, and he has won all of his battles. Taking over the Kozelsk kingdom was no easy task. He nearly lost most of his battles. The reason he nearly lost his battles against the Kozelsk kingdom was because of their ruler Alpha. Now Alpha is not his real name, but his people call him that due to his power and outer respect. Szeth and Alpha have clashed in many battles, and both are equally matched. When the Kozelsk kingdom fell, Szeth and Alpha were in battle against each other. Eventually Szeth got the upper hand. Szeth sent Alpha into the mountains, forests and deserts. No one knows where Alpha went. Many think that he's dead. Szeth took over the Kozelsk kingdom, and when it fell, other kingdoms were preparing to attack or surrender. Some kingdoms did nothing, knowing that it was the end. Some kingdoms entered a treaty to fight against the Sarith Empire. 12 kingdoms entered this treaty. This treaty was called the Treaty of Kings. That's cool. After 13 years, 9 kingdoms remain. This was told to me as chapter 1. Reading through it, it feels more like maybe a prologue, or maybe even just world building, depending on how much this will impact the story itself. It could just be kind of background to the world that the reader doesn't necessarily need to know up front. But it's got some good backstory. It's got some fantasy names. The only name I really struggled with was Kozelsk Kingdom. It took me a while to figure out how to actually pronounce that. And even though readers are just looking at the words and understanding them, some readers like me actually kind of say it aloud in their heads as they read. So when I read a story, I actually, like the way I read it out loud on this stream, I kind of do that in my head anyway. So when something is hard to pronounce, like Kozelsk, then it's just as hard to kind of read and understand until you're like halfway through the book, and then you're just used to, okay, it's the Koz one, and you know who it's referring to. So maybe rename that to something easier to pronounce. It also wouldn't be quite so difficult if it wasn't Kozelsk Kingdom, because there's 2 K's sounds right next to each other, which makes it hard to pronounce this as a phrase, which seems to be how it's used in most of the time. So you've got this world with so the current state is Kozelsk is no longer an actual kingdom. Everywhere is owned by the Sarith Empire. So it was swallowed by Sarith Empire. I'm just like noting things down about the current state of things when we actually start the story. Other kingdoms. Okay, so some surrendered. Some other kingdoms were also swallowed by the Empire. Some kingdoms attacked the Empire. Some of them fell, some of them survived. Some other kingdoms joined the treaty. They attacked the Empire, and some of them fell. Some of them survive to this day. So this Sareth Empire is kind of has swallowed most of the world and runs most of the world now. So I think instead of like directly editing this, I might give some advice on how to, whether this is used as just world building or as a prologue or something. Some tips on how to use this in the actual story, so like in a chapter 1 kind of way, how chapter 1 might look. So where could we start the actual story and how would this affect it? So we could start outside, the character outside the Empire. They could be a soldier kind of training to fight the Empire. Or something else. Or we could have a character inside the Empire. Maybe they're longing to escape. If they're longing to escape, it's just one example. If they're longing to escape, maybe you can show just why it's bad living under the Empire, to indicate why they want to escape, and show the Empire's control over the citizens, making it difficult to escape. Or if we're following like a soldier outside the Empire, they're trained to fight the Empire. What propaganda? What propaganda is taught to them about the Empire to like convince them that fighting the Empire is a good idea? Maybe some of that isn't true, and maybe some of it is true. Maybe it's hard to tell which. Do they trust the propaganda? Are they forced to fight by the treaty? Yeah, stuff like that. So people outside the Empire will have one perspective. People inside the Empire will have another perspective. If there's a character who loves the Empire, maybe they were they've always been a Sareth citizen. And they would have a very different view, or different to these guys. So they would see the world like the Sareth Empire is cool, and it's helping people, but they're being unfairly attacked. So you could show raids from outside kingdoms seen as unfair and brutal. The propaganda, because like there'll be propaganda about stuff either way, whether even if it's true, it's still stuff told to the masses to convince them that certain things are good and certain things are bad. So they see propaganda about attacking kingdoms and taken over kingdoms, like maybe one of these kingdoms that fell to the Empire, it isn't so great to live there now, and it's all kind of squalor and poverty, but the Empire says that they're great and they love it, that kind of stuff. It also depends on like if there's TV or something, this stuff would be communicated in a different way than like if it's just paper and posters and newspapers or something. So that's just some ideas. So you could theoretically do all of the above, but it's going to be difficult enough to like write one story, let alone 3 stories at the same time. So at least to start, for this writer, I'd suggest picking one of these or another character in a different situation with a different point of view of this whole thing, and just like start with their life and explore what their life is like, and show some of these things in the background. And through those things in the background, we will learn some aspects of this that are like relevant to their lives and affect them. And as the story goes on, they'll get more involved in, depending on like what the actual story is about. They could get more involved in the politics of it, and or like a rebellion and uprising or something, and learn more about the details of this stuff and what the treaty actually says, and where Alpha is and things like that. So you can still like work some of this stuff in to the actual story itself, which you should do whether it's a prologue or just world building that won't be in the actual novel. But you can get some of these details out in that way as time goes on. Good stuff. Great. So I stream writing about writing and giving feedback to people's writing and editing and stuff, and doing it all live and in real time, so they can like see how a reader responds as they read something for the first time, and kind of learn in a video way, which can be quicker to explain things for me and easier to understand. So if you're interested in like getting in on that, my DMs are open. You can contact me wherever you see me on the internet to like send me some writing to look at on stream, or a topic you'd like explored on stream. And I do this so far kind of roughly every day, on weekdays anyway, in the morning in UK time, which it is right now for me. Yeah, so maybe I'll see you in a future stream, and maybe you'll send me something to look at. But thanks for watching in the meantime.